Attention, prisoner 903-8970, you're up for parole.
American Arts Radio presents live from Chisel Multimedia Studios, Comics on Parole in Hollywood South. Here's your host, Dan Glazer.
Welcome to Comics on Parole. My name is Dan Glazer. We have a great guest that's going to come on in a few minutes named J.R. Russ of Movie Ticket Radio. But before we talk with J.R., I want to do a little promotion of a book of a friend of mine, and I hosted a show I was in a show that he was hosting, Mr. Jeremy Miller of Growing Pains. Jeremy Miller of Growing Pains wrote a book with Dr. Brandon Lane Phillips called Wish Upon a Star. Can you post that, Matt? Yeah, Wish Upon a Star. This is a book you can get on Amazon.com and Goodreads. It's a really good book on how Jeremy met Brandon when Brandon's had a congenital heart problem when he was a little boy, and he was going to recover. It was going to take some time, but there was a Make-A-Wish Foundation, and they granted him the wish on going on Growing Pains as a little boy because he always wanted to meet Jeremy Miller. So Brandon went on the show and he met Jeremy, and they've remained lifelong friends. So Jeremy helped, after Brandon met Jeremy, his self-esteem rose. He was making great grades. He became a doctor. And then when Jeremy got older, he had an addiction problem with alcohol, and Brandon helped him through that. So it's a very good book. You won't be able to put it down. Kirk Cameron's in it. Jeremy's lovely wife Joni's in it. It's just a really easy read, a quick read, and it's hard to put down. You'll go right through it. You can find this again on Amazon.com. Let's post a picture of Jeremy when he's on Growing Pains. Yeah, there he is. There, he's being held there, the little guy there. So you can find this book on Amazon.com and Goodreads. I recommend downloading it to your Kindle or whatever you have, or ordering the book and reading it the good old-fashioned way. Anyway, thank you. Now let's go to our honored guest. This young man, let's post this picture. This young man has been a long time, one of the best in the industry, long-time broadcaster and program for over 30 years. Let's welcome to the parole desk, Mr. J.R. Russ of Movie Ticket Radio.
Yay! Excuse me, is this the party to whom I'm speaking?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Dan Glazer, speaking to Dan Glazer. So, Russ.
Hi, Dan.
So let me give a little intro. I've been listening to Movie Ticket. How long has it been on? About 10 years, JR?
Yeah, it was actually probably started in 2008 as an idea, and it took several years to develop, but it's more like 8 years now of actual on-air, online, 24/7.
I've been listening to it almost from the beginning, every morning. I listen to it every morning, and I listen to it on TuneIn Radio, but you can tell them, and what it is, it's playing movie soundtracks all day.
Well, that's, first of all, wrong.
Well, I do my research.
I spend more time telling people.
What?
I spend more time telling people what it's not than what it is, and maybe I've got to do some focus groups on the name. But one of the reasons I've been having difficulty getting on radio stations is most people go, "Oh yeah, it's a bunch of soundtracks. That's been done before."
Right.
It's not. It's not all soundtracks. It's not Broadway show tunes.
Right.
And it's not background instrumental scores. Mm-hmm. It's the hits that you hear in movies.
Right. That's what I meant.
And early on in the 40s, 50s, 60s, when songs were in movies, there was generally the main theme. There was a love theme, and then there was some ongoing theme, like in the James Bond movies. They have the 007 theme. But right around the 80s, when there were enough oldies around, the oldies began to appear in the movies, and they were put in scripts that were either the song was put there to evoke a point in time, an emotion in the script, or just to have as a background. And like in Harry Met Sally, there's a jukebox playing, and the songs you hear on that jukebox are part of movie ticket radio.
Right, got it.
And then there are also songs that are put in movies nowadays to be discovered, like Celine Dion in Titanic, and various other songs that are put in movies that become hits. But then there are also newer movies like Guardians of the Galaxy 1 and 2 that are jam-packed with oldies.
Right.
And, the whole way this got started was a friend of mine. His teenage daughter went to a movie, and she came back and was humming this song. And he says, "What are you doing?" She says, "There's this new song I heard. It's really cool." And it's kind of a sound she was making. And he says, "Well, honey, that's Canned Heat." And that song's an oldie. She says, "Well, I never heard it before. It was, in this new movie. So it was a new song to a young person that had never heard it before." Right. So the songs are oldies to people who see the movies, but they're also newly discovered to younger people. So what I decided to do was go out and develop two portions of the format. One is a classic version that plays all of the stuff you would expect to hear, like Singing in the Rain and Somewhere Over the Rainbow, and for the movies of the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. And then from newer movies that I kind of base around Beverly Hills Cop and Back to the Future, all the way on up to Bridesmaids and The Hangover, and current movies of the day. Like this new one that's just out by Quentin Tarantino is jam-packed with hits.
Right.
I think it takes place in 1969. So it's jammed with songs from that era. So those songs are movie ticket radio songs.
You're right. I really wasn't very accurate, because it really is more. When I listen to it, well, these are great. These are songs from the movies, but really it's much more than that. And what I like that you do is you go into how many different movies that song was in.
Yeah, that's what makes the song, the format is unique, that it's very content heavy, because there are songs like Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head, and most people know that was in Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, but that song's been in about 10 other movies. And so we go on to list all of that. So I've actually done focus groups with people playing along like it's a game, like, wow, what movie was this in?
Right.
And then people will watch that movie on Turner Classic or FX or whatever, or they're on demand. And then another movie will come up, and they'll hear another song in there, like Kill Bill or Kill Bill 2, and then they'll go back and try and listen for that song in the format, because there's also a pop version of the format. And the classic I kind of designed to be a help for these adult standard radio stations that really were big in the 80s and 90s, saving AM radio.
Right.
And now they're getting burned out. The audience is turning 75, 85 plus. And so this is a way to play these songs that you just don't hear on the radio anymore, but to make it more viable and to have some kind of a connection to today by saying that, Somewhere Over the Rainbow was, in Wizard of Oz, which runs on, every year on TV, but it's also been in this movie, this movie, this movie.
So before we go on, because I have many more questions, let's play the demo. It's okay? Can we go ahead and play the demo, JR?
Sure.
Hit it.
Please do.
Play the video demo.
Now, more than ever, when broadcasters ask,
where are all the new format ideas?
They're here.
Hooray for Hollywood.
In Hollywood.
Go ahead, make my day.
Presenting Movie Ticket Radio.
Surely you can't be serious. I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
It's the music from the movies on the radio.
So crazy someplace else. We're all stocked up here.
Now, the mass appeal of the movies comes to the radio with the hits from the movies, with two exciting new formats. Movie Ticket Radio Classic, featuring the music from the biggest movies in history.
Somewhere over the rainbow.
I'm a Yankee Doodle dandy. Yankee Doodle do or die.
I'm singing in the rain, just singing in the rain. When you wish upon a star.
And more contemporary hits for more recent movies.
Yes, you'll be my heart. Once in your life, you find her. Someone who turns your heart around.
Working 9 to 5, yeah, I got you where I want you.
He rode a blazing saddle, he wore a shining star.
My endless love, nobody does it better.
Movie Ticket Radio Classic is specially designed to bring music back to the high-fidelity sound of HD AM. To tell you the truth, it could be the new adult standards format.
You can't handle the truth.
Then what about Movie Ticket Radio Pop?
Throw me a frickin' bone here. I'm the boss. Need the info.
Movie Ticket Radio Pop, with more recent rock and pop hits from newer movies.
Every time you do that thing you do, don't you forget about me. If you leave, don't leave.
What would Brian Boitano do if he was here right now?
But the most impressive thing about Movie Ticket Radio is that it's content heavy. Not just a bunch of eclectic, unrelated songs thrown out like so much loose change. Every song has a back sell to tell you in what movies it's been heard.
The raindrops keep falling on my head.
You may know this song from the movie Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, but did you know it's been in these movies too? That's the beauty of Movie Ticket Radio. Content heavy and hard for your competitors to copy. With the connections of the songs to the movies they've been heard in, every song has a reason to be in that content-filled format.
More variety than a Megaplex 24. Movie Ticket Radio.
Now, who can argue with that?
You wanted something new, saleable, and mass appeal.
You talking to me? Well, I'm the only one here.
It's here. Movie Ticket Radio.
Look, man, I ain't falling for no banana in my tailpipe.
Had the time of my life.
You betcha.
Stop searching for a successful HD format.
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore.
Go to www.movieticket.radio.com and listen to Movie Ticket Radio Classic and Movie Ticket Radio Pop.
And God is my witness. I'll never be hungry again.
Then call 202-510-7777. Movie Ticket Radio. Copyright J.R. Russ Programming and Research of Philadelphia, where the numbers live.
We're on a mission from God.
The Force will be with you. Always.
Very well done. In fact, isn't Kevin Bacon one of your biggest investors? I'm just kidding you. That was in your promo.
I wish he were.
One of your advertisements.
I'm in the Philadelphia area, and he's around here somewhere. I wish I could run into him and say, hey, I'm playing one of your songs from the Bacon Brothers band. Who else is?
Oh, really? He lives in the Philly area?
Yes.
You know, it's funny. I used to work at a job about 10 years ago where one of the manager's cousins was Kara Sedgwick. He's married to Kara Sedgwick, right?
Okay.
Isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, his wife. And he said, I was talking, he said, Dan, I got to go. I'm meeting my cousin and her husband for lunch, for dinner. I said, oh, very good. Are they coming? He goes, no. And he said it was Karen Sedgwick and Kevin Bacon. They were passing through Atlanta. By the way, it was interesting. I saw the Clint Eastwood there. You know, I mentioned to you a very well-known comedian here in Atlanta named Jerry Farber, whose brother is Barry Farber, that used to be on your shows. He's in the Radio Hall of Fame. So Jerry said to me that a friend of ours, Johnny Peraza, was just at a party, about 50 people there, and Clint Eastwood was there. And the reason Clint Eastwood was there is Clint Eastwood's favorite band leader lives here in Atlanta named Joe Granson. And he just came to the party to watch him play. So
a man's got to know his limitations.
Hey, that was good. That was quite good. Say the
well, thanks.
And he's making.
I do freelance commercial work, and one of my taglines is "I'm America's most versatile voice" because I never had one of those great big announcer voices. So I've always had to try to make it up by doing other things with my voice. So I do some impressions and other wacky stuff. And by the way, before we get too far away from that demo, the female voice you heard on there, props to PJ Faulkner, who is in Atlanta, and she works on the Fish radio station there in town, and she's also on XM satellite radio. But I worked at XM for a few years, and she was kind enough to help voice this demo, and she's been a supporter since the early days.
Is XM making money?
I don't know. I have to look at their books. I think they are. I think they finally got together, and when Sirius got in there, they were the money-making group. XM was there under Lee Abrams, who, of course, he and Kent Burkhart created the first album rock station, also in Atlanta. He was more of a visionary of just have all these channels doing all these different things, and then the corporate, more terrestrial radio-oriented Sirius XM people came in and bought it, and I think they've turned it more profitable. Now DirecTV owns it, and it's just
you know the person that did real well with it. What's the night show? The crazy radio guys that had the night. I can't think of his name. Howard Stern is the one who did very well with Sirius.
Oh well, yeah,
millions.
Yeah, no kidding.
He got stock, and he just sold his stock right away. He made a fortune. So let's move on here. Okay. So, we played the demo today. Let's talk about a few of the famous people you've worked with. Let's post a Weird Al Yankovic poster. Tell us what's your relationship with Weird. Were you a backup singer for Weird Al?
Yeah, I wish I were. In fact, I saw him recently in Atlantic City, and it's one of those shows where you go in and you go, I'm either really going to hate this or I'm going to love it, and I loved it. He really does an interesting show with all of the clips of virtually every radio and TV show that he's ever been on or mentioned on. Right. And then he does his live songs, and apparently he's doing a new thing now with this new incarnation of his show that has a live orchestra that he conducts.
Oh, wow.
And,
I saw that. Yeah,
he's really good. But I only had one run-in with him, and also in Philadelphia, where he just did a liner for me and said, "Hey, this is Weird Al Yankovic. Instead of gargling with broken glass and dying a horrible death, why don't you listen to JR?"
You should have put that in your promo demo you just played.
Yeah, I should have. I started out in Michigan and Indiana, and I worked in Buffalo and Philly and Baltimore and Washington. So I've had an opportunity to talk to a lot of big talent. Not so much comedians, but especially when I was doing the adult standards radio in Buffalo, I had a real opportunity. We were the only ones playing that type of music. And there was this place called, I think it was Melody Fair near Niagara Falls. And in the summertime, they had all these acts would come in there, and I had a chance to interview, not only but interview Johnny Mathis, Tony Bennett.
Yeah, that's what I'm about to show. The whole
Bobby Vinton.
Okay, I got those show. We put up Tony Bennett. Do you see Tony Bennett there, Matt? So tell us what happened with Tony Bennett, because I was going to ask about all these people.
Well, Tony was he's the biggest, I would say the biggest star that I interviewed even at the time, and he's still an icon.
Yeah.
And was the nicest guy of all of them. I mean, he was just exactly as you see him on interviews and things on TV. He was just easygoing, just a very, very nice guy.
He was born with that hair, by the way.
Was he? And also, if you happen to buy a painting in a garage sale and it's an Anthony Benedetto, grab it, because that's one of his. He's quite the painter.
Just real quickly, I was at in Vegas, and we were at a restaurant, and the next day, Tony Curtis was going to be speaking there. And so we went to see him speak, and I hear Tony Curtis's voice, but I don't see him. And I look down, and it's Tony Curtis, but this time he was heavy, he was bald, he just didn't look like Tony Curtis. But boy, it was, and he had all his paintings there, and he was selling them. So he's passed away, and he gave a great talk, but those paintings have to be worth something now.
Was he still alive at the time you met him?
Yes, he was. It was a great talk, though. It was really the people he's known. So I bought the book, and he had an affair with every single woman in Hollywood. And
one of my favorite movies is still Some Like It Hot. He and Jack Lemmon, and it's a shame that younger people today don't see anything that was done before they were born. And this movie, despite that it's in black and white, is still one of the funniest movies ever. It's just madcap crazy.
Okay, now you like trivia questions. Who was originally offered this part of Jack Lemmon before Jack Lemmon got the part in Some Like It Hot?
Ooh. I've heard that, I know it, and I can't remember. So I'm going to not waste you or your listeners' time and say who.
Jerry Lewis.
Oh,
and he turned it down. He just didn't want to be dressed as a woman. And then when Jack Lemmon got the Academy Award for that, Jerry Lewis sent him a box of candy. That was not a good idea, turning that role down. But Jack, I don't know that Jerry Lewis would have been right for that part.
Yeah, and how do you know about so many of these roles that even Star Wars, when they were talking about when they were making it, they were like, it was the first time really of working with green screen and things, and they were like, this is so ridiculous. They shot it totally out of sequence. Nobody knew any. They said, this isn't going to be a success, but we'll take the money.
That's true. Okay, let's go on to Johnny Mathis. Did you interview Johnny Mathis?
Oh yes, and he was like, treat me like the god that I am.
Really?
And there was a young, middle-aged newspaper reporter lady from like the Penny Saver that interviewed him ahead of time. Oh, Mr. Mathis, she was oozing. She just loved to, she was so in love with him. And I don't think his lifestyle had come out at that time, so she thought that he might be interested in her.
Right.
He was very nice, but he was very cold. He was just on like almost kiss my ring.
Yeah.
And but he was forthcoming and did a nice interview, but it was hard to learn anything personal about him.
Great voice. Yes. How old is Tony Bennett? About 95?
Yeah, something like that.
Amazing. I don't know if he's on hormones or what, but he's amazing.
And he still sounds great. It's he's one of these guys. You notice these older singers, if they don't push, if they do it naturally, they sound better. It's the guys that had to always push and scream. Right. That like even Frankie Valli, when I saw him years ago, this was 20 years ago. He had to hold the microphone out so that the girls could sing "Sherry Baby" because he just couldn't hit the high notes anymore.
Right.
In fact, I just saw Elton John do something on TV, and he had to have the audience doing some of the high parts because his voice got so much lower. Yeah.
He lived here in Atlanta. I still think he has a condo at Ansley Mall, but I don't think he's here much anymore. But he lived here for a long time in Atlanta. By the way, was it the theme song to Blazing Saddles, Tony Bennett? Was that Tony Bennett?
No, that was. Oh gosh, now I'm drawing a blank.
They very similar voices.
Yeah, but he did a lot of the Western songs,
right?
And maybe your producer can look it up while we're talking.
Can you look that up?
But I heard Mel Brooks. In fact, I had a chance to interview him on a radio, not in person, but via phone link. And he said that he was in Italy. Well, first they pushed after him to do. I think he did High Noon. The singer did this theme from High Noon, and he really said, "This is the Western voice that I want to do Blazing Saddles." And he chased him and chased him and chased him to get him to do it. And finally, all right, I'll do it. So he recorded it, and they had the Western music and the whip cracks and everything in there. And he thought it was a pretty good show. So he said that he went on and was in Italy at the time when Blazing Saddles came out, and Frankie Lane.
Frankie Lane. That's it.
He saw. He went to the movie and saw what the movie actually was, and he goes, "That's son of a..."
He said what?
He thought Mel Brooks was a son of a gun. He was convinced him that it was a regular straight-ahead Western.
That's hilarious. In fact, the last show, we just had a girl named Leslie Siegel. She was in Men in Tights with Mel Brooks. She had a...
Oh, really?
Yeah, did you ever see Men in Tights?
Oh, yes.
She was...
In fact, if you look at Young Frankenstein and Dead Men Don't Wear Plaid, you'll see a credit for George Geip. And when I worked in Baltimore, I used to do rating research at Arbitron. And one of my coworkers at a rock station there, and also used to do ratings research, looking at the diaries that people would fill out, is George Geip Jr. His dad was the George Geip that wrote with Mel Brooks, and he unfortunately died at a young age. But he said when he was like 10 years old, he remembers being in Mel Brooks' house, and there was Harvey Korman and Marty Feldman, and he just said he was very young to understand most of the jokes, but he said it was just constant laughter.
Well, I wanted to tell you real briefly, we only have 5 minutes. We had a guest on here named Johnny Knapp, who played piano at all the major movie premieres. And recently, a few years ago, he just played at Mel Brooks' 91st birthday party. And Johnny Knapp introduced Mel Brooks to, what was his wife's name? She was an actress.
I'm going to say, why am I saying Lauren Bacall? It's not Lauren Bacall.
That's a good thing about dementia. You meet new people every day.
I know. Like Homer Simpson. Like Homer Simpson says, "Lousy brain."
That's lousy brain. And Bancroft. He actually introduced them. So really nice man, Johnny. Anyway, so Robert Goulet.
Oh, Goulet was very cool. He, in fact, he was kind of like Johnny Mathis at first, very stiff. And when I would interview these guys, I tried to take their bio and try to come up with something. And I said, well, actually, you should be interviewing me. And he goes, "Oh, why is that?" He had this big booming voice, very handsome Goulet. And he was married to Edie Adams. And I said, "Well, I understand that you were on the radio for a while." And his face kind of lit up. Nobody ever talked to him about that. Well, when I was a young lad in Ottawa, I remember going to the radio station, and I would do the news on Saturday, and my mother would pack this huge lunch, and it was enough to feed everyone at the station. And I remember one of my first times on the air, there was an airplane crash, terrible crash, and I had reported that 25 people were killed, some of them seriously. And I noticed he said I had an engineer and the announcer, and I noticed on the other side of the glass, they began laughing. They were doubled over laughing, and then I realized what I had said, and now I began to panic. Here I am, starting to laugh about all these poor dead people. I didn't know what I was going to do. I thought I would lose my job, but fortunately I got through it. But it's one of his major embarrassments.
Well, by the way, he was born with that mustache. So that's a heck of a story.
And died with it.
It's a sad but funny story. But and Paul McCartney.
He was somebody that I had a close encounter with. Like Kevin Bacon. In fact, you're a second degree Kevin Bacon. I'm a first degree because I was actually at a mall in suburban Philadelphia, and he was shooting a movie, and I stood on the upper deck of the mall and watched him walk up to a jewelry kiosk and then walk away. So I guess maybe I'm second degree too because I didn't actually shake his hand.
But you knew who it was when you saw him.
Oh yeah, they were pushed that it was, or plugged that it was a Kevin Bacon movie.
I got to tell you,
and not one of his bigger ones, I might add.
I got to tell you a brief. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry, it's your show.
Well, Paul McCartney, when I worked at XM at the time, Sirius was in New York and XM was in Washington. They still have separate facilities because they have separate satellites that feed the separate radios that are in different types of cars. Like GM has XM radios, and Fords and Chryslers have Sirius radios. And while they simulcast a lot of the same programming, they still have to have separate satellites broadcasting on different frequencies. So I was at XM, and I was a board operator there, and then did a little bit of work on some of the channels. I got to know some of the program directors, would do a little bit of fill-in and some production. But I was also a floater. It doesn't sound like something a plumber would deal with, but it was somebody that would be in there, and at the time these live games would start, you had to make sure there was a warm butt in the chair. So, at 11 o'clock, you'd make sure that all the people were there, and if they weren't, then you would go in and push the button to start the game in case the board op was late.
Right.
And then if they had to take a break and go to the bathroom or get lunch or something, you'd fill in for them. So during this period, here's this block-long building with 85 studios in it, and I would just walk around and check on my people and then just try to amuse myself and, be nosy and go into the different studios and meet people. And there was they had 2 performance studios. One was a little small one where maybe a 4-piece group would play, and then they had a 50-seat performance studio where some bigger groups, and they had everybody from Beyonce and Coldplay to some of the classic rock groups and that. And one day there was this buzz in the building on a Saturday, and nobody was saying anything. You didn't know what was going on, and I happened to go around this back corner, and there was a little video booth, and the guys were standing there, and I was trying to say, what's going on? That we hear these sirens, and somebody says, he's here, and these 2 Lexus hybrid vehicles pull in with a Washington police escort, and in pops Paul McCartney.
Oh, wow.
And so he comes into the hallway, and I'm probably 10 or 15 feet from him. And there, of course, all the mucky mucks were there, so I couldn't actually go and introduce myself.
You didn't say you remember me from the mall? You didn't say, hey, you remember me from the mall?
But so they all they turn and they go to usher him into the performance studio, and he stops, and he turns around and he looks at the 2 video guys at me and just goes, hi, guys. And then turns around and walks away, and I'm like, I thought, how cool to acknowledge the little people. So Paul has been elevated on my list of cool celebrities.
That's a good story. Now, briefly, we have 1 minute left, Matt. Just real briefly, it's got to be very quick. You have a big announcement to make.
Well, I do, and I haven't inked everything yet, but I'm trying to make a big push to find Mikey. If you remember that Life cereal commercial, you got to find Mikey that's willing to try something new.
Okay.
And so many of these radio stations are so panicked to try something that hasn't been tested. So I'm trying to get radio stations to put this format on, and if I could get 4 or 5 stations to show some kind of ratings or revenue success, then I can start making money with movie ticket radio. And one of the things I'm going to do is there's a Hall of Fame broadcaster who has been one of my idols for years that I've forged a friendship with, and I'm going to have an announcement very soon as to who that is, but he's going to be voicing movie ticket radio. That's going to add more credibility to these broadcasters out there of why they should put movie ticket radio on one of their failing AM, FM, or HD radio stations.
Let me tell you something. This is every day I listen to the station. It's very, very good. You can download the app, TuneIn app on your iPhone or Android, or you can go.
Well, it's actually a movie ticket radio app for Pop and Classic. Yeah.
Oh, you have that now?
Yeah, there's an actual app for movie ticket radio.
Okay. I've been listening to it on TuneIn Radio. Okay, so you can download the movie ticket radio app on iPhone or iTunes or
Android.
Or you go to www.movieticket.radio.com and listen to it.
That's it.
Well, listen, JR, thank you so much for coming on Comics on Parole. I greatly appreciate it. And we will get this show to you as soon as we'll email this show to you.
Well, it's been my pleasure. Thanks for supporting the format, and hopefully people will watch the funny movies and enjoy the good music and have a good time listening to something different.
Very good. It was an honor having you on.
Thanks so much.
Okay.
Bye.
Okay, bye. Thank you for tuning in to Comics on Parole in Hollywood South. Tune in next week when we talk about a good friend of the station's, Pete De Lorenzo. Thank you.